Afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, the 16th webinar under the banner One on Education. A very warm welcome to all of you for today's session. I'm Sudha Satish from Orient BlackSwan. It's an absolute honor and privilege to introduce our speaker for the day, Ms Eleanor Watts, who is a dear friend and close associate of the Orient BlackSwan family. Eleanor Watts is a teacher trainer, materials writer, and an author with 4 decades of teaching experience in primary and secondary levels. She has taught in India and the United Kingdom and has trained teachers across the world. She has a master's in English literature from the Oxford University and a postgraduate certificate in education and an MA with distinction from London University. Eleanor has written more than 50 primary school textbooks, including many for Orient BlackSwan. She has been part of courses such as Gulmohar, Onward English, Roots to English, Open Sesame, Connect, Starting English, and Dialogue. She's also written a teacher's resource book, the Blackboard Book, and her stories for children, Ajanta Apartments, is still a favorite with many a child. Eleanor has also contributed to a number of educational journals such as Modern English Teacher, Teacher Plus, and Humanizing Language Teaching. In this webinar, Ms. Watts will share tips and strategies to teach young children online. Although she maintains that it will never be as effective as a lively classroom, she believes that the approach that she is going to talk about will help make the online classroom as interesting as possible. This webinar offers teachers of young learners some practical ways to stimulate activity and discovery-based learning. It's lovely to have you with us today, Ms. Watts, and over to you now for the session.
Well, thank you very much, Sudha. You're an old friend, and it's so lovely to work with you, and a real honour to be asked to be with you today. Thank you for coming, all of you. I'm going to share my screen now, so bear with me a minute. And whoops, I'm afraid I need to get right back to the beginning. So today we're going to be talking about how we break through this glass wall of Zoom. As Sudha says, it's nothing like teaching this, working with children on Zoom. And of course they're going to be distracted and they're not going to be as interested in learning as they would in a live classroom. But we're stuck with reality and we have to do our best. So today I'm going to be talking about how we engage at a multiplicity of levels with children through activity-based learning at the foundation stage. Now, first, I'm going to ask you to shut the door of the room you're in. Mine is firmly shut. And that's because you might have to make a fool of yourself. I will make a fool of myself. So please be ready to get up, move around, sing, and don't worry about anybody looking. Don't worry about taking notes either. There will be a handout sent to you at the end. Please take the time to do the activities, because the best way of learning, as we all know, is by doing. Get a pencil and paper, not so much to take notes, but to do some of the activities. I'm very grateful for 3 guinea pigs, Anjana and Priya and Smita, who are going to be sort of model children. They are rather clever children, but we will try our best to model activities that could be done with young children from 4 to 8. So can I just introduce you all, Anjana, Priya and Smita, and looking forward to working with you too today. Please don't put questions in chat until the Q&A. This is because we can sometimes be distracted by chat, and I want you really to focus on the activities. Now, let's look at a plan for what we're going to do today. We're going to think about how we can really be interactive when we are using an online platform. Of course, it's difficult. We know that children may be sharing a device with others. They may be in a noisy room. Their concentration will be short. Young children can only concentrate for a maximum of 15 minutes on each activity. So today, each of the activities we do will be maximum 10 minutes long. We're going to think about some key learning outcomes from the early childhood education goals in the National Education Policy for 2020. And these are summarised in the documents by this little picture of the brain showing how we all learn in different ways. So we've got developing curiosity, logical thinking, arts, crafts and music, relationship with nature, colours, shapes, alphabets and numbers, teamwork and collaboration, play-based and discovery-based learning, ethics, self-identity, and etiquette and behaviour and emotional development. Now, that is a huge amount to do in 90 minutes, but I have found one activity for each of these that may develop those particular sides of the brain. And we're going to be thinking about how we can adapt the activities for Zoom or another platform like that. Now, we're going to start with self-identity and an activity which is a great way of getting to know your class. And it's called Personal Clouds. So I'm going to ask Smita, could you reveal yourself so that we can see you? I'm going to ask Smita to look at a little diagram, and because I don't know Smita as well as I know Sudha, she's going to need to learn something about me before she accepts me as a teacher. And she's going to need to learn other things about her classmates. So if you can, use breakout rooms after you've modelled it with a bright child. If you can't use breakout rooms, that's fine. Do it on gallery view and get the children to share their pictures one by one after you've modelled it. The skills and learning outcomes, well, to express your identity, but also to solve problems, and in English terms, to use the form, do you like dancing, singing, whatever it is. And as I said, please remember to model this beforehand. Now, Smita, are you there?
Yes, I'm here and I can see the picture that you've just shared.
Okay, now Smita, I'm not going to say very much. Can you guess what sort of a person I am from these 5 pictures?
You're fond of birds. You like birds.
Well done, very good, because I ticked the bird, didn't I? So you've learned that a tick is what I like, yes?
And you like to climb mountains.
Well done, yes I do. Of course, I'm getting on in life now, and I can't climb the mountains I used to 30 years ago, but I do love hill climbing, yes.
You don't like traveling by car. You don't.
If I can help it, yes. Why? Why do you think I don't like travelling by car?
Do you have motion sickness? Do you?
No, that's a very good guess, but that's not the problem for me.
Oh, you do not like pollution.
Ah, well done, yes.
I did a little bit of cheating here.
Oh,
I
did you?
one of the answers in the chat. You don't like pollution. So,
So the other teachers are helping you, are they?
yes.
That is teaching. Now, teachers, what are you doing? You can help Smita if she needs it. Go ahead, Smita.
Okay, and clearly you don't like cats either. I don't like cats either.
Why not?
I think they're mean. I prefer dogs. They're more loyal, they're more cuddly.
I have another reason, and that is I love my birds. What do you think the cats do to my birds?
Oh, is that why you don't like cats?
I do quite like cats. I used to have a cat, but they eat the birds and they kill them for no good reason. And I get so cross with them. I rush out into the garden with a wooden spoon and shout at them. And my neighbours all think I've gone off my head.
Okay, and finally, you like staying home on sunny days. You don't like going out when it's too hot. Is that it?
Well, no. Have a look at the roof of my house.
There's some pretty tiles on the roof of your house.
Good guess, but they're bigger than tiles.
Oh, oh, there's such lovely answers coming in the chat. There's solar panels.
Very good, Smita. You've built up a picture of me extremely quickly. Well done. I'm very concerned about climate change. So, of course, I do have a car. I do pollute, but I try my best to use it as little as possible because we're in a bad state and we need to, all of us, I think, act to change things. But well done. You've built up a very quick picture of me. Thank you very much, Smita. Now we'll move on to the next activity, and I'm going to ask Anjana and Priya to join us for this one. So could we have all three of you, my sort of potential class, on screen here? And here the materials we'll need are a large glass jar, plastic jar or jug, not quite full of water, with a bit of space at the top, and up to 6 kinds of fruit or vegetables. This will take 10 or 15 minutes at the most. And if you know how to use Mentimeter, you can do it as a poll. Unfortunately, I'm not very good with these technical things, so I ran a bit scared and I said, can we just do it on the screen? So very kindly, Orient BlackSwan said, yes, all right, let's not do it with Mentimeter. But if you're very clever with these things, you can set up a poll with Mentimeter. Now, the point of this activity is to get children thinking without having given answers. All too often when we teach science, we do an experiment to show something. Now I'm going to show you that magnets attract iron, and then we show them. But real scientists do experiments to find things out. So what we're going to be doing in this experiment is thinking, hypothesizing, to use the great Greek word, we're guessing what's going to happen, which is what scientists do before they do an experiment. And we're thinking, is this what's going to happen or not? And then we do the experiment to find out. So I want you to make sure that you don't feel ashamed, Smita and Priya and Anjana, if you're wrong, because science is about learning to be wrong. Now, I'm going to show you a few things. I'm going to show you a tomato and a groundnut and a garlic and an orange. And I'm going to ask you if you think they're going to float. So could you please now just note down which of those are going to float, in your opinion. It doesn't matter if you're wrong. And teachers, wherever you are, and I know you're all over India, please will you just note down on your paper whether you think the tomato, groundnut, and so on, whether they will float. And just put a tick or a cross beside them so you don't waste too much time. And let's do it one by one. Have you finished? And by the way, is Anjana there too?
Yes.
Yes, Ms Watts.
Oh, I can't see you. I can't see you. Call me Eleanor, Anjana, please. So I expect your turn up when you start speaking. Okay, right. Have you all made your guesses? Right. What do you think is going to happen to the tomato, Anjana?
Of course, it will float.
It'll float. You think it'll float? Okay. What about you, Priya? What do you
Yes.
think?
I think it will not float, it will sink.
Really? And what about you, Smita?
I think it will float.
Okay, so it's 2 against 1, and very often the majority is right. So let's see what happens. Now, teachers, have you all made your guess before we do it? Oh, it's floating. Ah, now it's sinking. So, 2 of you were right at first, and then what happened in the end is the tomato sank. Now, don't feel bad if you guessed wrong, because I have to tell you as a teacher, the reason why I start with tomatoes is because sometimes they sink and sometimes they float. Now, if we had all day, we could talk about why that might be, and reminding ourselves that the oldest possible children we have are 8. But we might point out, for example, that a tomato is pretty wet. It's got lots of water in it. So it's very similar to water. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. It may be because it's a very ripe tomato it's gone down. Who knows? Maybe we could explore that in another lesson. Right, now here's my groundnut. What do you think is going to happen to the groundnut, Anjana? What will it do?
I think it will float. I think it will float.
Okay, Smita?
It will float.
Priya?
It will not float.
It will not float. Let's see what happens. Ah, so this time, Priya, you were wrong. Can you suggest how we could make it sink? Priya?
Shell the groundnut, maybe?
Oh, why? Why are you saying that?
Because it might get lighter in weight, it's smaller.
If it's lighter, will it sink? Or if it's smaller?
Yes.
Maybe. Okay, let's try it. So I've shelled it now. Oh, look at that. It floats. Now, let's try another one and see if that one also floats. Oh, so that one sinks. Now, let's have a good look at these 2 groundnuts. One of the tips that I put in my PowerPoint is be careful. Don't put it near your computer, because otherwise huge amount of damage will happen. Can you see if I put them right up to the computer? Whoops. Can you see any differences between those 2 groundnuts?
So one is with the skin on and the other is without the skin.
So why do you think that makes a difference?
The one with the skin is slightly heavier, or?
Well, actually, the one without the skin was the one that went down, and I think possibly there was less air in it. Can you see, teachers, that what we're trying to do here is not to teach the right answer. What we're doing is we're teasing out the fact that in an experiment there are many variables. Now let's move on to the garlic. I'm not going to ask you each time, because we're running a little late, what you think's going to happen. But just can I have everybody make sure you know what you think's going to happen. Here's the garlic. And it floats. So I can see that Anjana, Smita and Priya are all looking rather pleased with themselves. So I guess
Right.
that's what they thought. Now, let's look at this next interesting one, which is whether the garlic clove will float. Now, let me take all these, because after all, you know that the peel sometimes makes a big difference, as we saw with the groundnut. So let's get all this peel off. Now, can I ask you to guess? do you think the garlic clove will float? Anjana,
It'll sink.
you think it'll sink?
Yes.
It will sink. It will sink.
And Priya?
It will float.
Oh, Priya likes being different, doesn't she? And actually, being different is a very important thing. I remember when I lived in India, I taught in a village for 4 years, and we did this with a bucket in our village, and I had a coconut, a green coconut. And all the children said, oh, it'll sink, of course it'll sink. And Chris Tyre, who was not very good at reading and writing and didn't do terribly well academically, said, no, 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 it'll float. And they all laughed at him. And we put the green coconut in, and of course it did float. And Chris Tyre was the only one who was right, who had the courage to be different from everybody. And of course he had observed green coconuts floating. So observation is an important part of science. Let's see. Oh, now look at that. Now we thought because the shelled groundnut, because that went down, that this would happen with the garlic, which just goes to show that every material is different. So essentially what we're doing here is we're learning to be wrong and then talk about it. Let's just do one more. Orange. Anjana, what's going to happen?
The orange is big, so I think it'll sink.
Okay. And what about you, Priya?
Yes, it will sink.
And Smitha?
I think it will float.
Okay, so let's see. Oh, it sank and then it floated. So again, the minority was wrong. But now as we go through this experiment, we're learning not to laugh at the people who are wrong, because I'm sure you've all been wrong at least once in the last 5 minutes. We all need to learn to do that. Last one. Here's a bit of orange segment. Anjana, sink or
This will
float?
sink. This will sink.
Okay, Smitha? Could you unmute?
It will float.
And Priya?
Yes, it will float.
Well, you sounded very, very convinced about that, and you were right that time. Well done.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much for risking being wrong. Such an important thing when we're doing science. Okay, moving on now to logical thinking and problem solving. We're going to play a little game called Phonic I Spy, and you can use any detailed picture for this activity. It doesn't just teach you phonics, that's part of the purpose of it. It's also teaching logical thinking, and it's teaching that difficult English question form, is it? Because so many children say, it is an orange, it is a brinjal, instead of is it? It's a really complicated inversion, isn't it? So that's another of the purposes. But one of the main purposes is to get children to solve problems by elimination, by getting rid of possibilities. Now, here we have a picture, and I'm going to say to you the first sound, the first phoneme of a word in the picture, and I want you to guess in less than 6 what it is. So, I spy with my little eye something beginning with S, like what a snake says. S. Anjana, could you all unmute, please? And then we can...
Umbrella?
Umbrella. Now that, well done, because there is an umbrella in the picture. But does umbrella begin with S? It's a different sound, isn't it? Ah, for umbrella, S for snake. We haven't got a snake here. Priya, have a guess. That's one gone.
Is it a sari?
Oh, well done, because S and S is the first sound of sari. It isn't a sari. That's not what I'm thinking of, but it was a very good guess. Try and eliminate the possibilities. Try and find out what sort of thing it is. Smitha.
Is it something that can be worn?
What a good question. Yes, you can wear it. Yes. Anjana?
Shoes.
Well, that's a very good guess because shoes begins with the letter S, but not the sound S. Can you see S and sh sound different? So not shoes. Priya.
Can it be worn? Is it worn by girls?
Yes, girls do wear them, but boys wear them too. Now you've got one left. You've had 5 questions, and let's see if you can get it in 6. Smitha, can you guess what it is? Let me give you a clue. Girls and boys wear it. It begins with the sound S, and it's not sari.
Socks.
Yes, well done. You see, you did it between you. You eliminated the possibility and you got socks. Well done. Quick little problem-solving phonic activity. Now let's move on to colours, shapes, alphabets and numbers. There are so many games we could play for this, but what we're going to play is bingo. Bingo is a fantastic game. You don't need ready-made cards. You can use it to teach phonics. You can use it to teach pictures. You can use it to teach maths. All you need to do is to present children with about 15 choices and ask them to note down 5, let's say, of them. And then you play bingo. We're going to play it now. Teachers, please, will you play it too? Right, now, remember, as a teacher, I'm going to note down what I say because I have a bad memory and I won't remember which ones I've said. Now, could you all now copy down 5 of the numbers on the screen between 1 and 12? Just copy them down on a notepad. Now, in a minute, after you've copied down your 5 numbers, I'm going to dictate short sums. If you have the answer to the sum, please will you cross that number. When you've crossed all 5 numbers, can you raise both hands? Now, of course, in a normal classroom, we'd say bingo, but because this isn't a normal classroom, you're signalling bingo by raising both hands. Okay, are you ready? You've written 5 numbers. Good. 2 plus 1. What's the answer, Anjana?
3.
Perfect. So cross 3. If you've written 3, cross it. 2 minus 1. Priya?
1.
Excellent. If you've written 1, cross it. 2 plus 3. Smita?
5.
Excellent. Well done. If you've written 5, cross it. And we're going to move a bit faster now. 9 minus 3. I'm not giving you the answer. 9 minus 3. 5 plus 6. 6 plus 6. 6 minus 2. 5 plus 5. 6 minus 4. 10 minus 3. 4 plus 5. 12 minus 4. Oh, Smitha. Oh, you're all bingo at the same time. But Smitha, you were first. I'm going to check you out now. Now, Smitha, tell me, what numbers have you got? Can you unmute?
I have 6.
Yes.
9.
Yes.
11.
Now, have I said 11? Yes, I have.
4 and 8.
4 and 8. Perfect. You are the winner, Smitha, because you just got in before Anjana and Priya. Of course, that was an unusual one. Usually, you have one person being bingo before the others. But if that's the case, then it's the first person to show. A great way of practicing children's number bonds and also of keeping them engaged in their maths. Okay, so let's move on now to arts, crafts and music. Now, you've been sitting here for half an hour, and if you're a child, by this time you'll be wriggling and asking your mum for a biscuit and saying you want to go out and play because you've been sitting for such a long time. So let's get you moving. Now, we're going to do an action song suitable for children of almost any age. You can do some crafts with this. We're focusing on hands and feet. So, for example, you could get the children to trace around a hand and then decorate the hand. Here's my grandson's idea of decorating a hand. He's 6. They can do the same with feet. They can trace around a bare foot as well. And they could do sort of henna patterns, or they could do faces, whatever you like, as a way of getting them to do some artistic work. But also, let's not forget music. Now, I'm not going to show you the words now, but they will be in the handout. You probably know this song already, but perhaps you haven't played it on Zoom yet. So let's go, and I'm going to do this one with Anjana. So Anjana, could you stand up and make a bit of room around yourself? Teachers, will you all make sure that your door is shut so nobody's going to laugh at you? And you sing after me, because at this point we're teaching the children the song. We've already, of course, taught that my right may look like your left. So we'll talk a little bit about that in class if we're doing it with our normal group of children. Now, can I see you? Yes, I can. Anjana, are you ready to sing after me? Teachers, please get up, get some space around you and sing
Yes,
after
Miss
me.
Watts.
Ready?
Yes, Miss Watts.
Very good. All right. You put your right hand in.
You put your right hand in.
Your right hand out.
Right hand out.
Your right hand in.
Your right hand in.
And you shake it all about.
And you shake it all about.
You do the hokey cokey.
You do the hokey cokey.
And you turn around.
And turn around.
That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
Oh, hokey cokey.
Ooh, hokey cokey.
Oh, hokey cokey.
Oh, hokey cokey.
Oh, hokey cokey.
Oh, hokey cokey.
That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
Now, we'll then go on to do left hand, right foot, left foot, and we're going to move on now, because we haven't much time, to whole self. So after me, please, Anjana. You put your whole self in.
You put your whole self in.
Your whole self out.
Whole self out.
Your whole self in.
Your whole self in.
And you shake it all about.
And you shake it all about.
You do the hokey cokey.
You do the hokey cokey.
And you turn around.
And turn around.
That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
Woo! Thank you, Anjana. Well
Thank you, Miss
done.
Watts.
Good. Well, I hope you got up and danced with us. That sort of activity, of course, is a bit of a risk because children can get too excited. But I have a feeling that on Zoom, they're not getting excited enough. So let's take a risk and get them moving in the middle of a lesson. Now, let's go on now to the 6th element of the brain, and that's the relationship that we have with nature. It's difficult for children who are perhaps living in a flat to imagine how they relate to nature. But let's ask them to think back to the time when they came to school and they're the school that they perhaps haven't seen for a year, and their playground. They'll need a paper and pencil for this activity. And what we're going to do is we're going to show a very, very simple map of the school playground where you normally work. And we're going to ask the children to think, how can we make this playground a better place in terms of nature? Can we bring nature into our playground, even if it's in the middle of a city? Now here, for example, is my playground in the school where I work sometimes. There's just a gate and a main door. What can you do with this playground? Now, I'd like you all, teachers, please, to copy that L-shaped playground, or if you prefer, your own playground, a very simple one, and put in at least 3 ways that you can improve on your playground and bring nature into it. And I'm going to ask Anjana and Smita and Priya to think as well how they would add to their playground. So let's start with you, Anjana. What have you added to your playground?
Added swings to my playground.
Oh, really? Why does that help with nature?
Swinging under a tree is so beautiful, under the shade of a tree. I think it's really a good experience.
Well, that's a wonderful idea. Thanks, Anjana. I think we'll definitely have swings in our playground. Good. What about you, Priya? What did you add?
I've added plants, maybe with flowers on them, floral plants.
So that would certainly add to the nature, having some plants, perhaps in pots if there are no flower beds. Can you think of any kind of nature that would be benefited by the plants? Any kind of wildlife?
Butterflies.
Butterflies.
Yeah, butterflies. Maybe even bees, because bees make honey, and honey is difficult to find these days. Yes. Okay, well done. That's a very good idea to have some plants in the playground. Now, how about you, Smita? Have you any ideas?
There are flowers, there are butterflies, and in my playground, I visualized lots of leaves fallen down.
Mm-hmm. Where from?
And from the trees.
And if there are no trees in your playground?
Then we wouldn't have the leaves fallen down.
So what could you do to make it more nature friendly? Anjana?
I have birds in my playground.
You have birds, but how do you make the birds come? Why can you make them?
I saw the birds on the trees.
So what have you got to do before the birds come?
Plant trees.
We need to grow trees.
We plant trees, yes. Or even if there isn't much more space for trees in your playground, you might write to the municipal authority and ask if you could do a tree planting in the local park. We must plant more trees nowadays, and all children, it seems to me, should be encouraged to plant trees. Well, those are great activities, great ideas.
I just thought of a way to bring the birds in my playground if there are no trees.
Okay.
I can have a small pond or a pit where I keep water for the birds to come on a hot sunny day.
What an excellent idea. Yes, so you could put in a drinking place for the birds. Good. So other ideas that children have had in the past, adding a litter bin so there's no litter, a drinking water tap so that we don't bring plastic bottles into school, try to deter the use of plastic, and I think the other ideas you've all had. But this could be a long activity, and even if the children aren't at school, they can still visualize school, or visualize even how they might change their own balconies at home, how they might put flowers into their balconies, or bird feeders, or little pots of water for the birds. Great idea, thank you. Let's move on. Now, teamwork and collaboration. So many ways that we can do that in a real classroom. But I'm sorry to say that over Zoom, it's difficult. What we're going to show now is an idea for group storytelling. And you could do this with any number of unrelated objects, pictures. But it is important they shouldn't be too obviously connected, because then you really get the imagination going. Now, the learning outcome is indeed to get children thinking collaboratively, but also to tell a cooperative story building on what the others have already said. In linguistic terms, using the past tense. And in my experience, I love getting children to create stories. They find it very difficult if you don't give them a clear focus. So that's why we've got these pictures. We've also got a focus in terms of the structure. So we're now going to try and make up a group story. I don't know what's going to happen because we haven't done this before. It's new. But what I am going to say is that I'm going to ask each of you to think of a different part of the story. I shall start off so that we can kind of get the hang of where we're going. And I'm going to start off with the setting where, and then I'm going to ask Anjana to come in and tell us what happened, when it happened. Then I'm going to ask Priya to come in and tell us what happened. And finally, Smita, will you tell us why it happened? So here are our 5 pictures. And teachers, I hope that you're all busily thinking about a story you could make, including these 5 pictures. Well, it was a dark night. I was very tired. And I went to bed and turned out my lamp. Suddenly, I heard a rustling noise. And I looked up when, and I'm passing on to you, Anjana. Could you unmute? Could you unmute, Anjana?
Yes, Ms. Watts.
Sorry.
I looked out of the window. It was dark, but I saw something move. I made a loud sound, and there it was. It was a snake. It was a cobra with its hood up.
What happened next, Priya?
I switched on the light in my room and I screamed out. That's when my mother came into my room with a cup of milk for me.
She came in with a cup of milk, I see. So you've got the cup in. Very good, Priya. Well done. Let's go on to Smita. Now, Smita, you have to wind it up and you have to use 2 pictures. Of course, if we had more children, we could add more pictures and we could give them each a chance. But Smita, can you finish up the story and tell us what happened next and why?
My mother came in with the cup of milk, and when she heard me scream, she kept the cup of milk down and rushed out of my bedroom. She grabbed a broom as she rushed out. She went out and she switched on the veranda lights to see what it was, but she didn't see anything there. However, when she switched on the light in the veranda, she startled a little butterfly that was sitting on the parapet, which flew away.
How lovely. Well, I didn't expect that ending. Well done. I think that could have gone anyway. Just before this workshop, I tried out these pictures, these 5 pictures, on my 6-year-old grandson, and he had a completely different story. And in his story, he ended up in a pit with a cobra kind of looking in through a sort of hole at the top of the pit, and it was a small hole, and he happened to have a cup with him, so he blocked the hole with the cup so the cobra couldn't get in. And I'm sure if you try this with your pupils, they will startle you with their ideas. So thank you very much for that story. It was not what I expected. Let's move on now to ethics and emotional development. I'm sure you all do this, teachers. This is when we ask a certain child to be our star of the day. And that gives us the opportunity to focus on the emotional development of one particular child and to give her or him the opportunity to express what's been happening in his life or her life, to think about it, to think about things that have troubled the child or that the child has enjoyed, to sort of explore their own experience and to share it with the rest of the class. Of course, when we share our emotional experience, we get into that complicated area of ethics. You know, did I do the right thing? Should I have done something differently? What could I have done to make things better? And these are difficult things that really need us to be there with the children, but perhaps we can do on Zoom if we structure it in a certain way. So I'm going to have Priya now as my star of the day. And Priya, I'm going to start with a few questions, fairly simple ones to begin with, and then we're going to move into more complicated territory. Now, Priya, what did you do yesterday?
Yesterday I watched a movie.
Yes.
I watched Wonder Woman Part 2, the new one that has come.
I see. And what did you enjoy about it?
Oh, it was lovely. There was a lot of action, and there was this Wonder Woman who was all powerful, and she was so strong, and she had so much strength. She fought with the bad guys, and it was lovely. I want to be like the Wonder Woman someday.
Was there anything that troubled you about the film? Were there any problems in the film? Was there anything frightening in the film?
The bad guys were a little frightening. There was this one guy who was so greedy. He wanted all the power and wealth in the world. So he steals a magic stone and he wants to become all powerful. And so the things he does to get all the power, it bothered me a little. Can someone be so bad?
Do you think there are any? Do you know anybody very bad in your life? I mean, if I look around at you and Sita and Smita and Anjana, you're all rather nice people. I don't know any really bad people. We all behave badly sometimes, but these bad guys in films, do you think there are really bad people like that?
I think it's just a story. Can anybody get that bad? I don't know.
Is it a bit difficult for you to say what you're thinking? Telugu మాట్లాడతామా?
వచ్చు మీకు వచ్చా తెలుగు?
కొంచెం వచ్చు. చెప్పు.
అంటే అంత చెడ్డవాళ్ళు ఉండకపోవచ్చు. అట్లాంటి సినిమాలు చూస్తుంటే మేబీ అటు అంత చెడ్డవాళ్ళు ఉంటారేమో అని అనుకున్నప్పుడు కాస్త భయంగా ఉంటుంది. అంటే డబ్బుల కోసం, పవర్ కోసం అంత చెడ్డ పనులు చేస్తారా అని అనుకుంటే కాస్త భయంగా ఉంటుంది. రియల్ వరల్డ్ లో ఇట్లాంటి వాళ్ళు ఉంటారేమో అని భయంగా ఉంటుంది.
అవును, అవును, అర్థమవుతుంది. Thank you. Now, what did you notice, all of you, when Priya started talking in Telugu? Anjana, Smita, did you notice any difference in the way she expressed herself?
She seemed happier to talk in Telugu.
I felt so. And of course, Telugu is not my mother tongue, but I can speak it a bit. And I wasn't the person who was speaking. In Star of the Day, you want the children to speak rather than the teacher. It's about expressing your own feelings, difficult feelings. And I believe that the new educational policy is very keen on getting children to use the mother tongue. I must say I agree. I think if a child speaks English at home, that's fine. Then effectively English is the mother tongue. But for the vast majority of our students, that isn't the case. And when they're learning how to deal with the complicated business of being alive and behaving well, probably the best way to do that is through the mother tongue rather than through English. I'm afraid that I'm an English teacher. I often make the mistake of thinking that if children are learning good English, they're learning to be good students. But actually, English is sometimes an obstacle. It's a kind of weight around children's necks. So I do think it's important to give them the freedom to use the mother tongue, especially when we're thinking about ethics and emotional development. So thank you, Priya, for sharing your feelings there. Let's move on now to the next one, and that's play-based learning. I'm sure you all know this one, teachers. Simon says it's a very old game, and there's a good reason for it being an old game. It's a wonderful game because you can include 100 children in Simon Says, and they are all active. I can't see all the teachers who are on this webinar, but you can all take part in this. And if I had a screen and I had a class of 25 children, I could see you all. And I could see whether you had understood what I'm trying to teach. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use TPR, a total physical response, one of those nice ELT acronyms. And we're also going to use multiple intelligences. We're going to get you to think not only about the parts of the body, movements, we're also going to get you to think about feelings, your kinesthetic sense. And I'm going to make the game progressively more difficult. So we'll start off with Simon Says for 3-year-olds, and then we'll go on to more able children and older kids who have a greater command of the language. So let me just remind you of the rules. If I say Simon Says, you do the action. If I don't say Simon Says, you don't do it. And if you are, you're out, and you must fold your arms like this to show me that you're out. Okay, but you're all in at the moment. So off we go. Simon Says, eat. Simon Says, drink. Dance. Out, Priya. Out, Smita. Because I didn't say Simon Says. Well done, Anjana. You are the winner of the first round. Because you didn't do it, because I didn't say Simon Says. Right, now you've learned that one, and we're starting again, a slightly higher level, 3-word commands. Simon Says, comb your hair. Simon Says, touch your nose. Now touch your mouth. Oh, well done. You all learned not to touch your mouth. Very good. Touch your ear. Simon Says, touch your ear. Simon Says, get up and turn around. Simon Says, get up and turn around. Yes, trying to keep you moving here because otherwise you're getting bored. Well done. Now nod your head. Nod your head. Nod your head. Simon Says, nod your head. Oh, Anjana, you didn't nod your head. You're out. Fold your arms, please, Anjana. You didn't nod your head. Simon Says, put your right hand up. Too slow, Priya. Smitha is the winner. Now we're going to make this even more difficult. So we've got 1 to Anjana, 1 to Smitha. Let's see who's going to win this one. Simon says, look cross. Simon says, look angry. Simon says, look sleepy. Simon says, look thirsty. Now Simon says, drink a hot cup of tea. I'm very glad to see you're blowing it, Anjana. Smita, you sort of drank it down a bit like a glass of Coca-Cola. No, it's a hot cup of tea. So I'm sorry, Smita, you're out. Fold your arms, please. Anjana and Priya, it's between you two. Simon says, shut your eyes. Simon says, open your eyes. Now, wave your hands. Oh, very good, very good. Simon says, eat a banana. Very slow, Anjana, very slow. You didn't eat a banana. And Priya, I'm very glad to see that you peeled your banana. So Priya's won. Well done. So each of you have won one. That's very good. Well done. Now, we're moving on to our last activity. And this is very similar to Simon Says, but it teaches children this difficult concept of saying please. Now, I know when I was learning Telugu, I found it very difficult to be polite because of the verb endings. I remember getting laughed at because we were in my school near Nellore. Some buffaloes came into the school gardens, and I said, rushed out at the boy who had sent the buffaloes in, and I said, me barilu ma gadi tintunaru. And this boy fell about laughing because I'd used the honorific, the polite form for his buffaloes, when I should have said tintunayi, because they're only buffaloes. So I find the honorifics in Telugu very difficult as somebody who's learning Telugu as a second language. And children who don't have the word please find it quite difficult to remember to use it. So this is a sort of variation of Simon Says, really. Instead of saying, Simon Says, the children only do it if you say please. So let's just play that variation once. And when we finished, please let's show appreciation for the winner. Not feel, oh, bother, I didn't win, but be polite to the winner. And instead of saying, ha ha, I won, give the winner a clap or a smile or a thumbs up, as you can do, of course, on Zoom. So let's just play that this way. Okay, so please read a book. Please read a book. Oh, you've got a real book. You can mime it if you want. Now put it down. Out, Smita. Now clean your teeth, please. Clean your teeth, please. Well done, Priya. I used please, and I used please at the end, which is the way we often do. So you were a little confused, Anjana, because I didn't. But please can go at the beginning or at the end. It's almost the same thing, but it's a variation that reminds children how to use please in English. And now let's give Priya a big clap or a big thumbs up to show that we don't have any ill feelings that she won. So very little time for us today to rush through these 10 activities, but we've somehow done it, and I hope that you've enjoyed these 10 activities. Now comes the difficult time when we get you to think to yourselves, okay, it's all very well for this English woman sitting in her study in England, but it's not like that in my classroom. And I'm sure it isn't. You know, what I have is like a kind of shop with lots of little trinkets here and there, and you're not going to want to buy everything you want from me. And what you do take from me today, undoubtedly, you will adapt it to the way that you teach. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes now, absolute silence, and I'd like you to turn off your screens. I will too. And I would like you to think of one activity we did today and how you would adapt it for your situation. I'm going to time it 2 minutes, but don't look at anybody else. Don't talk to anybody else. Just think to yourself, how would I adapt this to my teaching situation? Okay, are we back? Oops. Now, let's have a think. Have the three of you had some thoughts now? Anjana, could I start with you? Did you have any thoughts about how you might adapt what we've done?
I would look at the activity on relationship with nature.
Oh, yes.
We could ask children to look out of the window or step into their balcony.
Yes.
Ask them about the weather. Is it sunny? Is it rainy? Or is it cloudy? We could ask them if they see anything green outside and if they can see anything in the sky, anything flying in the sky, leading them to the trees and the birds.
What a lovely idea. I think it's important for us to remember that, of course, they're not at school. They are at home. And I think that's a great way to adapt to the situation that we're all in, that they are not with us and they're in a different place. That's a really lovely idea. Thanks very much, Anjana. Priya, did you have any thoughts about how you might adapt what you're doing?
Yes, like what you said, they are not in school, they are at home. So I would probably do the physical activity like the hokey cokey, probably just move their hands and fingers because as a teacher, I don't know where they're sitting and what their location in the house is, if they're sharing the room with someone else. So that's a problem I usually face, where we don't know what the surroundings are, how they're located. So I probably work that around somehow.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. And I think getting them moving is very important, isn't it?
Yes, that's true. Uh, Getting them to even switch on the video or it is, but getting them to move is definitely important.
Yeah. Thank you. What about you, Smita? Did you have any ideas?
Um, I really like the story, the way the story kind of got woven by all of us differently, each one with an object. But I think for my students, instead of restricting them to objects that I have selected and showing them the pictures of the objects, I probably will ask, and since they're at home and they're all super excited about showing, young children love to show things. So I'll probably tell them, we're going to make a story. Each one of you quickly bring any object from around where you're sitting. So whatever is within your grasp, pick an object, and I'll probably select 5 or 6 students to make this story. I'll start like you did. I do the same way. I'll start it, and then each one with whatever object they have, they continue the story using that object in the story. I'll probably do it that way.
Nice, very nice. Okay. I hope, teachers, that you've also thought about things that you would do differently from me, because we all need to teach the particular children we have in the particular place we're in a slightly different way from other people. There are no right ways of doing things. We have to work it out, what works for our kids. Now, next task. I've presented you with 10 activities that I think would work on Zoom. I'm sure over the last year you have had some good ideas about the ways that you can use Zoom yourselves. I'm going to give you another 2 minutes to think of a Zoom activity that has worked for you. Note it down so that you can remember it. And in a little while, when we move into the chat, I hope that some of you will share your ideas with us on the chat. But first, please just do it for yourself. I'm going to go quiet again, and I'm going to give you just 1 minute this time. So 1 minute from now, please, just note down a different online activity that has worked for you on Zoom. Had your ideas? Okay, could one of you perhaps give us an idea that's worked for you on Zoom that we haven't talked about today? Yes, Smita.
So I use this as an energizer, and this works with all age groups. What I do is I'm going to show you an object, a part of an object. I won't show you the entire object. It will just be a small part of the object that I'm going to hold really close to the camera on my screen. And you have to guess what the whole object is. Okay. So here I bring the object right before the camera. Can you see that little object? Make guesses. What do you think it is?
Is it a balloon? A balloon?
Oh, it does look like a balloon though, doesn't it? But it's not a balloon. Any more guesses?
Is it A plate, a funny shaped plate.
No, it's not a plate either.
Anjana, Priya, have you got ideas?
Is that your case? Your spectacle case?
No, it's not my spectacle case. Okay, let me try moving this object before the camera, but I'm going to move it fast. So move your eyes along quickly and try to guess what the object is. Okay? Are you ready? Eyes on the screen, everybody.
Ooh.
That was fast. Was it too fast, Eleanor?
Is it made of plastic?
Yes, it is made of plastic. I'll do it one more time.
Is it a ruler?
It's not a ruler. I'll go a little slower this time.
It's a comb.
Absolutely right, Priya. It's a comb.
Oh, it's a...
Yes, so we're
Nice.
all engaged, we are all interacting.
That's a great idea. I'm sure, teachers, you've been busily scribbling your own ideas, and I hope we'll get a chance to hear some of them in a minute. Now, I think we need to move on probably to the Q&A. We've got 15 minutes for that. So please put your questions in the chat, just short ones, please. I'll do my best to answer as I can, and Smita, Anjana, Priya, please join in as we go. Now, I think that that you can see the chat. Is it Smita who's fielding the chat?
Anjana will be sharing the questions. Anjana will take up the questions that have come in.
Yeah, Eleanor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now that was a wonderful session, Eleanor. It was so full of energy. As always, it's such a pleasure to see you in action.
Well, it's been a great pleasure to work with Anjana and Priya and Smita, actually. They've been...
I really enjoyed every minute of the session.
Thank you.
The activities you showed will certainly make any class come alive, that's for sure, whether it's online or offline.
Thank you.
I noticed that most of the activities stimulate the senses, and that, I think, is the best way to get young learners completely involved. And I particularly like the science activity. Using real objects in class will help students understand so much better, and it increases their curiosity to learn, and they learn with clarity.
Exactly. And I think also, if you do that science activity beforehand, you could ask your parents to get those simple materials, the jug of water, the tomato, the orange, and so on, ready to do at home as well. Because, of course, children learn best by doing rather than by watching. And it would be great if you can send those materials home. I hope that the handout will be coming to teachers very soon.
It will reach the teachers, yeah. Okay, I think we are running out of time, so I'll now hand over the session to Ms. Anjana Visa, Academic Head Preschools. She will relay the question and answers now. Questions, sorry, not the answers, questions from the participants, yeah. Anjana?
Thank you, Sudha. That was a very enlightening session, Ms. Watts. Since we don't have much time left, I will go straight to the questions. The first one, considering that the attention span of young learners is short, how can we as teachers deliver the concepts effectively for them to grasp these online?
It's a very good question and a very difficult one to answer. My feeling is that we should keep the activities within 15 minutes online and make sure that we do something after those 15, even just give them 2 minutes to get up, shake themselves, do some stretches, put their arms out just to get the blood moving around. So keeping the activities short is one thing. I think another thing is getting the children to do something rather than just to listen and be told. Get them to make guesses, for example. So keep their suspense is a wonderful tactic for a teacher. And I love the way that in the comb activity we saw just now, we were kept waiting. And that's the essence of any good story, isn't it? We don't tell at the beginning of a story who was the one who kidnapped the heroine or whatever it is. We always keep something back. And I think as teachers, we need to keep something back, keep up the suspense of a lesson.
Thank you, Ms. Watts. The next question is, how would children develop their social and emotional skills staying at home?
Well, that's another great question. I mean, if they're lucky enough to have brothers and sisters or cousins who live in the same household, I think they can develop their social and emotional skills. But for many children, and particularly thinking of my grandson who lives in South America, a long way from me, and is an only child, it's been a very hard year for him. He's 6, he hasn't been to school, he hasn't got other children to play with very often. It's very, very hard. And I suppose it's up to parents to become children and play with their children. Of course, that's very difficult when they're trying to earn their livings at the same time, possibly trying to work at the same time. There are no easy answers, but I think it's very important for us as teachers, given that we're here because we're teachers, and probably a lot of us are parents as well, but as teachers, that we see the need for children to play and ask the kind of open-ended questions that we did in Star of the Day to get them to express their feelings online. I don't think there are any right answers, but I think it's a mistake to think that we should cram lots of information into our lessons, especially for 4 to 8-year-olds. They should be exploring, experimenting, thinking about open-ended questions. So probably giving them time to draw a picture, for example, turning off the computer, as we did, when we asked the teachers to think, we turned off the computer, gave them a very short amount of time to think, but do the same for children. Give them time to draw, give them time to write.
The next question is, what must be the size and the duration of the online class for young learners?
Well, I don't expect you have a choice as to the size of your class. You're probably given the size. Ideally, it should be 25. That is the number of children who will fit on a Zoom screen. But I'd be very interested to know how many you are expected to teach on Zoom. Here in England, it's limited to 15, but I'm sure it's more than that in some schools in India. The great thing about having a maximum of 25 is that you can see all those faces on the screen, and then you can, for example, suppose you're playing Simon Says, you can see who's out, and you can see who's scratching their head, and you can see who's drinking a cup of tea like that. So in terms of Zoom and maximum sizes, I would say the maximum ideal size is how many you can fit on a screen. If you have to teach more than that, and I'm only talking about foundational stage, that is under 8, I think you have to depend on there being an adult with the child supervising the activity with them. Because if you ask a child to do something without supervision, And whether they're 5 minutes away or 5,000 miles away won't make any difference if they're working on screen. You do need to have an adult there with them, helping them write, helping them do their sums, helping them do the activities that you set.
I think we have time for a couple of questions more. The next one is, how can we do Blackboard work in an online class, especially when we are teaching them topics related to writing?
Well, there's one thing you can do, and that's to share your screen and use something like Word. We haven't practiced this, but if we're to get up Word, and I mean, if I were to get up a blank document on Word, this is something that I have done. So, for example, if I share my screen now and we're writing a story, wait a minute. Can you see a blank document there?
Yes.
I would choose
Yes,
a font. I'd choose a good primary font, such as Comic Sans, if you've got that on Word, because it's got the right kind of A and the right kind of G. And then make the font big. And then, for example, suppose we were writing a story. I went to bed when it was dark. And I could ask the children, what did I do next? I'm thinking of the story that we all made up. What did I do next, Anjana?
I woke up as there was I woke up startled because there was a noise outside my window.
I woke up. That's a very good word. Startled. Well done. As I heard. Now, heard is a really difficult spelling. Look at that. It's one of those sight words that we need to learn by heart. As I heard a noise outside the window. So in a way, what I'm doing here is I'm using my screen as a blackboard. Another thing I can do, of course, is to, if you don't use your screen and you want to have something that's sort of the easiest thing to do is, here are the drawings that I did for this workshop. There are the pictures. I can just show them like that to the camera. Or I could do this one, for example. And there you are, you've got them. So it's not so easy to draw, I find, online. But writing, and you could do the same with sums, but certainly writing a story with a class, you can share your screen and do it on Word.
The next question, Ms. Watts. How can we help children who are outgoing in a real life situation but shy in an online class?
Yes, that's a really interesting one. I suppose by putting them on the spot, by not allowing certain children to dominate. I have noticed when observing online classes that what can happen is that there's an outgoing child who wants to answer all the questions. And just as in a real life classroom, we as teachers make sure that we ask children who can answer certain questions to answer them. So if there's you remember I told you about Christia, that boy in my class who was the one who said that the coconut would float. Christia, because he had a terrible home life, poor boy, he had all sorts of problems at home. But to kind of set him up to be able to shine and not to ask him questions that I knew he couldn't answer. If I had asked him to spell herd, H-E-A-R-D, he could never have done that. But if I'd asked him to say, what does the word snake begin with? What's the sound at the beginning of snake? He could probably have done that. So I think in terms of the shy child, the key thing is to pinpoint them and say, Christaya, what do you think? But give them a question you know that they can probably answer, not to put them, to shame them. Because the ones who talk all the time are usually people who have quite a lot of self-esteem.
Absolutely, Ms. Watts. I think this is going to be the last question for today because this is the last question. That's all the time we have for. How can we develop their gross motor skills in an online class? Also, isn't it important for children to move around, be physically active, and learn through play? How can we manage that with remote learning?
Another really difficult question. We have tried to do that in this session by doing some singing, some dancing, getting them to stand up frequently. I suppose one thing we can do is to set homework, if you like, which is moving about. So we can say, right, before we meet tomorrow, can you do 10 skips? Count and take a rope outside onto your balcony and do 10 skips and learn how to do it. And then the next day we can say, who learned how to do 10 skips? Can you show us? And then they can demonstrate they can do 10 skips. Or we could say, can you go to the park and climb to the top of the climbing frame? And then we can ask them who managed to get to the top of the climbing frame. So some of the gross motor skills can be a kind of homework. If they're allowed, are they allowed into the park at the moment in India, the children?
Not yet.
Not yet. Ah, yes, we had a month without going to the park. It was terribly hard for children. But of course, one thing they can do indoors is to, practice 100 jumps or touch your toes 50 times. So they're practicing their counting, they're practicing moving around, they're using up some of their energy.
I guess they can do this with their parents. Would be a good exercise for them too.
It would be good exercise for them too, yes. But I do think that one of the keys to online learning is keeping children engaged. Of course, I haven't talked today about storytelling because that's a completely a new thing. But I mean, any book that you have that has pictures. I mean, I've been reading the story of Tom Thumb to my grandson over Zoom. And the one he loves, he longs to get to this picture here of the giant with the 7-league boots. So while I'm reading him the story, I'm showing him the picture, and that sort of keeps him engaged. But storytelling on Zoom if you've got great pictures, is another way of keeping them engaged. But I wasn't answering that question really. I think the key to Zoom learning is keeping up the suspense, always keeping something back so that they want to come back for more.
Yes. Like we are looking forward to the storytelling session now. Thank you so much, Ms. Watts. And over to you, Sudha.
Thank you, Anjana. And thanks again, Ms. Watts. We'll certainly remember to use all these activities that you taught us.
Well, I hope you'll all adapt them and use them in your own ways.
I think we will, because if you see the Q&A box, we have several of the participants writing in saying how they plan to adapt and what they plan to use. So they're already thinking about that.
I look forward to reading them. Thank you so much, everybody, for your participation. It's been a real pleasure. And thank you, Sudha. Thank you, Vani. Thank you, Anjana and Priya and Smitha and all my friends at Orient BlackSwan. It's been a delight.
And we will certainly remember that we should encourage young learners to experiment, explore, and express themselves. I think that's the key takeaway from your session today. I would like to thank everyone for participating in today's webinar. We'd love to hear from you, so please do share your feedback with us. Good day from all of us at Orient BlackSwan. Bye.